What is good, fam? How is everybody doing today? It is How is everybody doing today? Damn. That music always gets me, man. That music always gets me. I don't know why. I think that's the most lit music that I have on this channel. I know the Falcons one is pretty good, but the music itself is pretty lit. I enjoy my intro just a little bit. It's the little things in life, guys. The little things in life that make everything special, and that's why I love doing what I do. I was talking to somebody last night about this program and about all the people that I get to share Falcons talk with, and all the people that I get to have fun with, and the interesting people I get to meet, and the discussions that I get to have. And they were like, "Wow, you live a really good life." And I'm like, it's only because of the people. It's how you make it out to be. What's going on, guys? It's your boy, Lieutenant Dan from Unintentional Grounding, here live in Orlando, Florida, with a little food for thought. A little food for thought after the emotional live show that I did about Matt Ryan's contract. Now we're going to lighten up a little bit, and we're going to talk about possibilities and things that could or could not happen going forward. Let's say hi to the chat and everyone that is here, talking, speaking, and following along. Mega Noob and Big John's 6458. Sorry, that somehow just tripped over myself. Brazilian X Skills, Rose Stackson, Erica Allen, Evan Thompson, Joseph Felker, David Gomez, Greg Jackson. Good to see all of you guys in the chat. Let's get straight into it. I think that it's very interesting. First of all, huge shout out to DW the Falconer on Twitter for bringing up this discussion. He is a writer and editor for the Falcoholic and co-hosts some of the Falcoholic discussions, and brought up a really interesting note that I wanted to talk about. You can actually go see his tweet on Twitter. It's a whole thread, talks about everything, but I kind of wanted to break it down on here and discuss what's going on. Now, DW was looking at the Falcons cap and how Ryan's hit and cap hit would affect other players. And he came to a couple of conclusions, and after reading this, I came to my own conclusions as well. But here are a couple of conclusions for the next 2 to 3 years down the road. So if you want to know about what the Falcons could be facing as far as difficulties with their own guys and who they're going to have to possibly draft to make it work, then stick around because it's going to be fun. So 2018, he starts with 2018 and he goes, should be doable to get not only Jake Matthews, but Grady Jarrett under long-term deals. And the Jake deal could free up potential cap space anywhere from $2 to $4 million this potential year, which is, after looking at some of the cap numbers and kind of going over that, it's just like, yeah, you know what? You're right. Jake and Grady could both be put under long-term contracts. Don't even have to discuss that. It's all fine. But all of that is probably going to work out perfectly. Sign your left tackle after you sign your quarterback, and then sign one of the biggest impact players on your team on the defense to a long-term deal, as long as they're structured well, which Dimitroff under Dan Quinn has structured these deals very well. Then we shouldn't have any problem, right? We should have very little issue when we're discussing getting Matthews and Grady Jarrett under contract. I myself would rather move on from Jake Matthews, but I'm glad I'm not the GM because it's most likely in the best interest of the Atlanta Falcons to keep Jake Matthews, even if I think that there are suitable replacements in the next few drafts that we could potentially bring in and start this all over again. It's probably better in their interest to keep Jake Matthews around. By the way, I have no problem with Jake Matthews. None at all. Then we go into 2019. He goes, so the next contracts would be up. Oh, by the way, he says Ricardo Allen, question mark, not sure how that will work. In my mind, move on from Allen, put KZ at free safety, or draft a safety in next year's draft who could potentially come in and slot up, which that's fine. That's fine. Now we head on to 2019. Beasley, Jones, Campbell are all up for contracts. And assuming top-tier deals get done for Jones, a deal gets done for Jones, a top-tier deal, the team will need to slot Beasley below Von Miller's numbers to make it work. So to be able to keep Beasley and Jones, Beasley's going to have to take a pay cut. This, of course, comes in with a factor a little bit later in the thread about who and what would factor in to make Beasley's contract less or more. But if we just kind of look at 2018, just for a second, just look at 2018 and go, the Falcons picked up the fifth-year option for Vic Beasley. They obviously have interest in keeping Vic Beasley. But if Vic Beasley comes out and underperforms in 2018, we're talking less than 10 sacks. Because I think that is the mark that Takk McKinley's probably going to make for everyone. And I think Vic Beasley, being a veteran, being moved back to defensive end permanently, will be playing for a contract this year. He'll be thirsty, he'll be hungry, whatever situation or whatever adjective, adverb, verb you want to use to describe Vic Beasley's want to get a new contract. 2019 is the year that he will be hunting for that new deal. 2018 will be the prove-it year for that deal. Deion Jones, no one in here is going to begin to argue for or against Deion Jones getting a contract because we all know that he's going to get a contract. He's been one of the most impactful players outside of Grady Jarrett on this defense, and he holds this team together like glue, at least on the defensive side. He's a good leader. He's a hard worker, and I could go on the long list of intangibles that he brings to this team, but the number one thing is he's not Paul Warlow. And let's just have a laugh for a second in the chat. He's not Paul Warlow. Thank God. Deion Jones knows what he's doing out there. He's been impactful, interceptions, forced fumbles, turnovers on down. Deion Jones has been out there to do that. He's going to get a contract. The Beasley contract will be the one that will have to try to play down. We'll talk about injuries. We'll talk about sacks. We'll talk about all of that later on. But Vic Beasley in 2019 will be looking for that contract. 2018, he'll be out there to prove that he deserves that contract. Now, Devondre Campbell, I've got a problem here because I love Devondre Campbell, but he's replaceable. Devondre Campbell is definitely replaceable. Will we have enough money to be able to keep Devondre Campbell in? Remember that the 2019 season, the cap hit from Matt Ryan is only $20 million. So 20 or 22 million, something like that. So it's not a super increase. Really isn't, because Matt Ryan was making 21, I believe, until we restructured it. So to me, that's not the worst thing in the entire world, and it still leaves money open on the table in 2019. Your question is, has Devondre Campbell played up to his contract, up to a big deal? Does he deserve a big deal? Those we can bicker in the comment section and in the chat and on message boards or wherever. But when you look at how much Devondre Campbell has done to this team versus the level of play that he's been able to provide, he's replaceable. Huge impact for this team to have a guy like Devondre Campbell, but he is replaceable. And that's just one of the pieces that can be replaced, as well as Vic Beasley. Vic Beasley can be replaced as a one-trick pony, a guy that really is just a pass rusher and has not morphed his game due to a lot of different factors that I can clock in, but we need to move on. We need to move on. So, assuming top-tier deal for Jones, team needs to slot Beasley below the Von Miller numbers. Right, because Von Miller can block in running situations, and he can pass rush, and he's a vocal leader. Vic Beasley's maybe only got about 2 out of 3 of those, and leader is probably not one of them, so maybe he's only got 1 out of 3 of those. So unless we cut somebody like Sanu, maybe that's why we drafted Calvin Ridley. Start thinking. If we cut somebody like Sanu, we may not have cap room for Campbell. So that was 2019 in a nutshell. DW, the Falconer, talking about that. Then he goes, okay, 2019 continued. Now, on top of all that, Hooper is also up for a contract in 2019. Could potentially slot him in with a small cap hit in 2019. May have to make hard decisions on Campbell, Hooper, and Vic Beasley. Interesting. So Vic Beasley, if he doesn't prove himself this year, and we picked up his 5th-year option for 2019, we just play him out through 2019 and go get a pass rusher, replacing Vic Beasley and allowing him to hit the free agent market. Pay Coleman, Jones, Matthews, and Grady Jarrett, and potentially cut Sanu. So you guys tell me, but allowing Vic Beasley to go, picking up Campbell, picking up Jones, picking up Jake Matthews, and letting Sanu go. What do you guys think of that going forward? While I go into the chat really quick and start saying hi to some more peeps that have joined the chat. Falcons Freak, Evan Thompson, Willow is in the building. What's going on, my dude? Don Lunsford is in the building. I'm sorry if I said that wrong. Tony Snow, good to see you. Ruben is in the building. Rose Staxon is also in the building. Good to see all of you guys. And if you haven't said hi in the chat already, please do, because I will try to say hi back the best that I can while I'm trying to get some of this stuff out of the way. So let's recap 2018 and 2019. 2018, doable to get Matthews and Jarrett in long-term deals. Ricardo, probably not. Beasley, if he doesn't play up in 2018, could play out his contract in 2019 on the 5th-year option and then leave the team. With Jones getting a big deal, Campbell possibly getting a deal, and Hooper possibly getting a deal, with Sanu possibly getting cut. What do y'all think of that so far? 2020. Let's move on. Oh boy, 2020 is going to be interesting. 2020, Keanu Neal is up for a deal, and assuming he gets the 5th-year option, which is likely at this point, the Falcons cap would be tight. But again, we'll be forced to make some choices on some veterans like Alex Mack. Is there a potential, especially since the rumor came out and was confirmed, that Frank Ragnow, the center out of Arkansas, in this previous draft was a Falcons target, and we actually wanted to move up to get him until he was drafted by someone else. So were we looking for a replacement for Mack in this draft? There was potential to say that that is true. And if that is true, then that means that this coming draft, which is 2019, and then the draft afterwards, which is 2020, could be looking at potential spots at linebacker, wide receiver, and offensive line. Not a lot of sexiness in that, to find replacements for guys that we have had to cut. Free safety just gets added to that list too, unless you believe in DeMonte Casey. And if you don't believe in DeMonte Casey, then you are adding free safety to that list of potential players to pick up later. Now, let's move on. Do you pay Neal? Of course you pay Neal. Neal has been an instrument in this defense and been an enforcer, and he's gotten better year to year, not week to week like Takk McKinley has been, but year to year, kind of like what Deion Jones has been doing, which is year to year, month to month, getting better and progressing as a player. Again, if Alex Mack gets let go from this team and we decide to go on another route, another free agent signing or another draftee, which is more likely than the free agent signing with a kind of strapped cap, you're looking at a brand new offensive line. You're looking at a brand new system, which could mean a high first or second round pick on a center who is very capable of coming out day one and getting it done. So there is that. So much is speculative, he continues on, but the Falcons will have to make some tough decisions or mortgage huge cap hits for the future in 2021, 2022, meaning a window of 2018 to 2020 for postseason success with the current talent. Not with future talent, but the current talent, where a lot of the current talent could be cut by 2021 or 2020, and we have a brand new set of bigger pieces and bigger positions that are going to take over. I kind of lean towards that side, where a lot of the guys, Alex Mack, Sanu, Vic Beasley potentially, Ricardo Allen, probably Hooper added to that list. There could be Campbell gone. There could be Andy Levitri and Brandon Fusco gone. Pretty sure Julio Jones at some point in here will either get a new extension in his contract or will leave as a Falcon. And then put on top of that, Coleman potentially leaving and not being here anymore. I mean, the list goes on of guys that could potentially be gone. Be like Brooks Reed, Derek Shelby, Jack Crawford, just to talk about a few guys that we could be replacing from 2019, the coming draft, to 2020 or 2021, if you want to extend it just one more year, to talk about, what are we talking about, like 4 drafts total, 28 players potentially taking spots for the Falcons, and maybe only about half of those, so what, 14 of those players sticking to the roster and being potential starters for the future. There's always problems with teams in their rosters and how you move money around. But if I'm correct in assuming that we are draft hungry, no longer free agent tied, but draft hungry to grab guys on the lower end of the pay scale, talented, and a youth movement that will continue in Atlanta, then we're going to only keep our guys. So I'm just pointing at the potential that a lot of your fan favorites could be heading out of Atlanta because the cap is going to be a little difficult. But we're not even talking about the potential raise in the cap from 2019 to 2020 when we vote for a new president. So let me continue on. DW continues saying, likelihood of keeping all homegrown talent is slim, but they should be able to keep several key guys. Team needs to draft very well over the next 2-3 years to maintain success/end. Then Aaron Freeman, who I respect his opinion and respect what he does. What is his show? Locked on the Falcons. Locked on the Falcons podcast. He seems to be a little bit of a pessimistic type, and he seems to be a realist within that pessimism, and I appreciate what he brings to the table, which is a different view. A lot of the time, he will be very quick to say that you're wrong, but when you're on board with him, you're friends and fam, and that's all that matters. He goes, I'm not as convinced as others that Beasley sticks around beyond 2019, and I am on that boat with him. In fact, actually, I'll shovel the coal into the furnace to keep that ship moving. But we'll see what he does this season. And then DW goes, I think it will depend on several factors. One, and this is what I said we will get to as we were going through the show, how he performs in 2018. Duh. Number two, how Tack performs in 2018. Move on from Vic Beasley because you have a better option in Tack McKinley and then go draft someone else? Very possible. Number three, how Jones, Hooper, and Campbell do, since it will be up for deals in the next year. So if Campbell doesn't look so great, Vic has a better chance of getting an option for a contract. If Hooper doesn't do very well, bye-bye, Hoop, because we will find other ways to get things done. Again, the biggest thing that they've said all this time, Thomas Dimitroff and Dan Quinn, is that we sign players who play up to their contracts, and we sign our guys first. So we'll always look at our guys to move around first, and then we'll go into free agency and see if there's any complement pieces to go in there. And if there's anything that we can really pull in for a good price, we'll do that. But it won't be anybody crazy. It'll just be there to complement what we're doing. The draft is where we go and make our decisions, make the biggest decisions. If any of these guys leave, you know that's what the Falcons will be looking to draft, is those particular pieces that they've lost. Too easy is the draft to predict now as far as positions are concerned. If the Falcons want to keep the bare minimum of what is necessary to keep the team together at the pieces that the glue needs to be the strongest, then we can say that everything else is a supplemental piece and everything else is just a contributor, not really going to stick around the team for the long term, which I think tight end may be one of those positions of, we don't really need it. I think another position like that is probably the interior guards, where they're not looking for a long-term interior guard. They're just looking for guys that can do their job. That's why Levitri's here. It's why Brandon Fusco's here. And that's the reason why they've got a lot of very late-round talent with very small contracts trying out for those positions. Too easy to look at. Now, as things go on, Corey Woodruff from the Falcoholic and Rise Up Reader comes in and says that I think Beasley is somewhere in between his league-leading sack season and where he was last year. He should come back with anywhere between 7 to 10 sacks, and in my opinion, it needs to be 10. It has to be 10. He could go with 9, but it has to be 10. Here's the reason why. The Falcons won't be impressed by Vic Beasley getting away with single-digit sacks and going, that's enough to warrant a nice contract, a nice dip in. They will want closer to above average or best in Vic Beasley, because if not, I think it's going to be a move away. Just having a guy that can contribute here or there, that's not worth the money. That's what a free agent is for. A guy that's really going out there and showing promise, then you make it tougher on the Falcons. And with this particular case, if he's got anywhere from 7 to 10 sacks, that's a good radius, but I think that it's closer to 9 to 12 sacks that they will need from Vic Beasley, and then Vic Beasley will have ammo. For the Falcons, though, if they really do believe Vic Beasley is worth the money, even if he's only putting up 5 to 8 sacks a season, then they will have ammunition to go, well, you're not as productive as we thought you were, so you don't deserve Von Miller money, and that's why we need to pull you back. Also, you didn't perform well as a multi-positional player, nor did you do well in your second season, or really even in your first season, to be honest. So can we kind of like put the restart button on this and maybe give you a contract somewhere else? But again, that all depends on whether or not he has those particular amount of sacks, and if Tack continues to emerge as the leader as a edge rusher, and if he can stay healthy. Of course, he's had surgery on both of his shoulders now, and that way, I think maybe he entrenches himself, Tack McKinley, as the first rusher, not as the second rusher, as long as Vic Beasley, of course, is playing at that mid-tier level. You know what I'm saying? Then we kind of cap that off with Charles McDonald and myself saying a couple of things here or there about the potential of particular players going out there. And Charles and Aaron Freeman do point to Vic Beasley potentially being a linebacker, which I thought that he didn't do well at linebacker. So you're really just looking at a two-down rusher out of Vic Beasley, which is sad. But it is what it is, you know. You're gonna need to find a complement piece in this next coming draft to push Vic Beasley. I hate that word, to push somebody, because to be honest, we have good pass rushers. Brooks Reed is capable of doing what he needs to do. Tack has emerged as something very, very interesting, you know? And to be honest, if you didn't catch just the last few minutes of me talking about why Vic Beasley and some of the intangibles of him not having success were all about, then I repeat one more time. Yes, he was played out at linebacker because we were thinned at linebacker, but being multi-positional is like one of the bigger things that you need to entrench yourself into in the NFL. You need to learn how to play multiple positions. You can't just be one-track mind. You can't just be a one-trick pony. You can be, it has to work. It has to work better for you and your teammates to be able to jump into situations sometimes where your coaches are saying, hey, we don't have enough defensive ends. Can you please go out to the side and play defensive end as a defensive tackle? And vice versa. Hey, we don't have enough defensive tackles. Can you step inside and just make a couple plays here until our guys are healthy? So, here we go. All right. I see that there is a discussion going on inside of the chat right now between Willow TV, our resident Saints fan, and all the Falcons fans. And we're talking about consistency, I think, within this chat. And I'm just going to say this really quickly so that I can kind of like squanch it. And if you guys want to continue to go on, you can continue to go on and do what you want to do. Matt Ryan versus Drew Brees is not the same conversation. Never will be the same conversation, because Drew Brees is a more accurate quarterback than Matt Ryan and still has one hell of an arm compared to Matt Ryan's arm. And I will defend that, saying that there's probably only about 3 or 4 guys that have better accuracy and arm strength combined than Ryan. And those would probably be Drew Brees, Aaron Rodgers, potentially Carson Wentz. I love his arm strength and his accuracy that he puts on the ball. And I would probably say there's one more younger guy that could go out there and do that. I wouldn't say Cam Newton, because that's kind of silly. But if we're ranking people, I mean, Brady's an assassin in between the first 10 yards to the first 15 yards, you know. Stafford is a good one, Tony, but I don't think that he has there's something about Stafford that kind of makes me skittish about talking about him as an elite quarterback. I think we can have this discussion for just a few minutes about guys that are, I hate this term. It's the worst term in the world. Talking about guys who are top 5 and versus top 10. Ryan can compete with most, if not all. And we were having a discussion not only a few years ago about who are the best quarterbacks in the league, probably Brady, Breeze, Ryan, and Rodgers. If we're really kind of boiling it down to the guys that can lead their team and get them those points that they need to score. But Stafford has definitely a discussion in here. Wentz has a discussion in here. Cam Newton in certain areas has a discussion or a point that he can make about being a top-tier talent. So, I mean, we can go on and on from Russell Wilson in some cases has a point to make that he could be a top 5, if not lock at top 10 quarterback in this league. But when you try to really melt it down, and put these guys in top 2s and top 3s and top 4s, it just doesn't work like that. That's why I go with the 8 rule. There are 8 quarterbacks in tier 1, tier 2, tier 3, and tier 4, It works out like that. Ryan, no doubt, is a top 10er. And I don't want to boil it down anywhere else. I can argue that he is probably number 7 or number 6 in this grouping if we were looking at all 32 starting quarterbacks and what they mean to their team, not just the accomplishments. So just because you have a ring doesn't mean that you were the one who got the ring, aka Joe Flacco, aka Eli Manning. Those guys didn't just get their rings. Their defenses kept them in their games and really were the ones who got those rings. Now, that can be the discussion for another day. But long-term investment, when you're talking about these types of things, there are 8 top quarterbacks in this league. Then there are 8 mid-tier quarterbacks in this league. Then there are 8 quarterbacks that are journeymen, roamers, probably not the best in the group. And then there are 8 that probably are slotted in the rookie slots to development year 2 type of guys. And we don't talk about them in the presence of the other 16 to 24. You know what I'm saying? So, okay. Now that we got that out of the way. So I hope you guys enjoyed the show, or at least the discussion that we just had just a moment ago, and looking at the positions that we will have to fill in the future. Linebacker, we're going to have to probably fill up on wide receiver again. There's the potential to fill up on running back if the Freeman thing doesn't work, or if we sign Coleman. There's just a lot of moving parts that are going to be coming up. I'm excited about it. Offensive line is going to be interesting. Corner is going to be interesting. Tight end will be interesting. Those will all be interesting positions that we're going to have to feed mouths and pay some people and get some new peeps from the draft, which makes it extremely exciting for 2019, 2020, 2021, 2022. All of those drafts are going to be really exciting. I think DW put some really good thoughts down and kind of wanted to put this, I just wanted to put this live stream out for him and say, you really did think about this, and it really does sound solid. It sounds very solid. Junior91 says, have you looked into our undrafted free agent signings? And I have. I have actually the whole list out right in front of me, which is kind of funny. But this list of guys that we have, and I'll go on just a small talking point on these guys. Ben Kurt will probably make this team the quarterback out of Virginia, since we already gave him extra signing bonus. And I could see him potentially being the guy behind Matt Ryan, or potentially being the 3rd quarterback on this list. There are many times where he looks like an NFL quality quarterback, or a guy that could hold a clipboard behind Matt Ryan, or step in a blowout game, or towards the end of the season when we don't want Ryan to get hurt and we have not clinched the playoffs, but the game doesn't matter, or some stupid thing like that. Kurt could come in and play. Looking at all the running backs that we looked at, Demario Richard, Justin Crawford, and Malik Williams, the only one that I really like is Demario Richard, and Malik Williams is a fullback to me. We brought in 2 other fullbacks, Daniel Marks and Luke McNitt from Nebraska and Stanford, and I think one of those guys sticks to this team as the full-time fullback and maybe the 4th or 5th running back that we have on this roster. Center CJ Hassener from Alabama. He could be interesting to keep around, especially if that Alex Mack thought process that we won't keep him around forever does stick with us. Matt Gano is a super underrated tackle and guard out of Wesley College, and I think that he sticks around and probably beats out one of our other dudes that we already had on the practice squad or in the deep running to stay with us. Jake Rowe is the only tight end out of the 2 out of Tory Mangan of Ohio. I think that Jake Rowe is probably the guy that makes it on this team if Salbert doesn't do well. And if that is the case, then Salbert wasted our time with the draft pick that we picked him up with. I saw all of the wide receivers, and the only one that impressed me was Colorado State, Detrick Clark. The other dudes, Lamar Jordan, Dante Bird, Devin Gray, and Christian Blake, all seem like they all seem like Gabriel replacements. They're all just little speedy small guys. Not impressive to me, and I don't think either any of those guys make this team, maybe to the practice squad. The only dude that I see making the team for the defensive line positions is Jacob Tatui Mariner from UCLA as a guy that could play defensive end and play defensive tackle. He was a teammate of Tack McKinley, and I think that if he was given some seasoning, with 7.5 sacks last year, he led his team in sack production. He might be the guy that sticks around and potentially get some snaps on the defensive line. That would be really interesting. And then I looked at Anthony Winbush and Emmanuel Ellerby and Richard Jarvis, Ball State, Rice, and Brown, all respectively. Anthony Winbush really is an interesting outside linebacker prospect that could make this team. I don't see Joseph Putu, corner out of Florida, making this team. I also don't see Chris Lamons out of South Carolina making this team, even though the Falcoholic has kind of given him the stamp of approval. Skandrick Cooper, LA Tech safety, is one guy that I want to keep an eye on, but I don't think will make this team either. And David Marvin, Georgia kicker, a specialist there, may initially look interesting during practices in the coming months, but I think he gets stashed away on the practice squad and we just keep somebody there because we don't know how much time Matt Bryant really has on this team. So those are some of the guys that I looked at and some of the guys that the Falcons have picked up and thought about. There are some rumors going around right now. There are some rumors going around right now that the Falcons are not done picking guys up in free agency, especially with $4 million in cap, $5 million in cap or so, and then another 3 coming soon from the Toilolo cut. I think they designated him as a June 1st. So there's a potential there for the Falcons to move on from that and grab some more people. I wouldn't be too surprised. Looking at Averill, really, to be honest, as a potential guy that could come in as a pass rusher, just a specialist, come in, get a small contract, prove it deal, and see if he's worth it, if he can get medically cleared. And of course, Rubin and Upshaw are still out there in free agency. We could pick up either. In fact, letting Dion go would be a mistake. Yes. Absolute terrible mistake. Absolute first, yeah, absolute terrible mistake. On the first round bust y'all picked, and that's not a bust. That's just called an overpay. Be careful, Tony Snow, because Marcus Davenport's not a bad player. Marcus Davenport just needs time to work. There's no such thing as a bust until 4 or 5 years in with a player, and a lot of teams don't even give them that much. They give them 2 to 3 years. Davenport's not a bust, but grabbing him that early and grabbing him, using that much draft capital to go get him is a win now move, a panic move to go, we need to get this guy. He's going to make a difference. When all of the draft community is going, hey, look, that guy needs work, a lot of work. But his potential, his ceiling is John Abraham. And if any Falcons fan knows, John Abraham terrorized teams, especially the Saints. So if they have their own version of John Abraham, it would terrorize Matt Ryan for the rest of his contract. But just gave up too much to go get that. When I think that it probably would have, that player would have fallen into a better range slot for them, and they would have had to give up a little bit less. So that's just my takeaway from that. I don't think calling Marcus Davenport a bust is the correct term. I think that calling it a reach might be the correct term, but calling him a bust is not. By no by no stretch of the imagination is Marcus Davenport a bad player, or is he going to play bad? He just needs a lot of work. And players that have needed a lot of work and have proven to put in the time to be able to be good players have been the best players in the NFL. Look at Tom Brady. There you go. He was good in college, but he wasn't great. He was picked in the, 6th round? Something stupid. And put the time and effort to really become a great quarterback under probably the greatest coach of all time in Bill Belichick, who knows how to really, really, really motivate his players and work with them. You know? Oh, we trade for Tavin still? Well, actually, interesting thought process on the Jags. They did not pick up the 5th-year option for Dante Fowler. And it would be very interesting to see Vic Beasley get cut from the team and for the Falcons to pick up Dante Fowler and try to work with him. I think that would be pretty deadly. You go from one guy that knows how to pass rush but has no ability to run block to a guy that knows how to run block and knows how to pass rush but has been injured and a little inconsistent and needs the right coaching. Easy peasy lemon squeezy, I go grab him on a pretty nice deal and slot him on the other side of Takk McKinley, and now you're just as fast. But that's just my thought process there. I am going to go ahead and head out, and I'm going to go finish playing some more The Legend of Zelda Breath of the Wild, because it has been the game that I have just been enthralled with. The Switch is a great game, by the way. It's a great console. I love the Switch. But I need to get a PS4 because so many of my fans, all of my grounders, have PS4s and would love to discuss football, but they just don't. They just don't own the same system. So, and we'll get that we'll get the call service set up so that you guys can start calling into the show, because I think that will add an extra dimension to this whole setup. All right. So y'all take it easy and breezy. You've been listening to Unintentional Groundings. Lieutenant Dan, who's been speaking nothing but the facts and the truth. Big shout out to DW, the Falconer, and Corey Woodruff, and the staff at the Falcoholic and Rise Up Reader. for the amazing content and a great discussion point, amazing discussion point that we needed to have. And somebody was able to actually go out there and really put it down. I'm going to start working on some sack videos today. And then as we get into it, I'll start doing some other streaming stuff and some new videos along the way. Check out my Mixer account that I'm going to be going live on later today at about 6:30. Mixer.com/GoatyRamSam. 6:30 start time. We will be doing some live streaming there on Mixer. And we will be playing some video games on there. Check us out. Come talk in the chat with me and talk about life, video games, and football stuff. I would be honored to have you there with me while silly things are going on and having cool discussions. So I will talk to you guys later. Peace out, grease out, rise up, even if you aren't a Falcons fan. And to all my grounders, thank you so much for the support. Hit the like button, subscribe to the channel, notification bell, and make sure you check us out on both of our social media platforms, UNGR_show, for both Instagram and Twitter. And check out our Patreon if you'd like to support the show with your own monetary help. Peace, and y'all have a wonderful day.